All right, here we are, a little coffee chat roadshow with my friend Lang Seitz here. I was away from Saskatoon for quite a while and caught up with my friend over a cup of coffee. We're going to talk a little bit about what he's up to. Lang had been attending the live coffee chat meetings for quite some time, and he always showed a real interest in his version of development of the human possibility, I guess you'd say, for lack of a better term. And he actually did a presentation at our speakers forum for the coffee chat, CK Speakers Forum at one point, and it's actually gotten quite a few views. So he has since gone into doing something about his interest. Lang, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how it is that you got interested in this whole human development?
I think I got interested in human development just because of my own sense of frustration. The video that Steve talks about is on my website, so I'm not going to cover that. But after I left the military, I started to read a few spiritual books, and I read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and I've been spiritually wandering for some time. From there, I kept reading a number of books. I joined the Center for Positive Living, which became the Center for Spiritual Living. I was there from 2002 till 2012 when I left. I took all their courses, the Science of Mind training. I was certified as a Science of Mind licensed practitioner for a couple of years. And then somewhere around 2012, I bumped into a book called The Book of Secrets by Osho. I already was familiar with Osho. I facilitated a couple of book studies by him already. But the Book of Secrets, where I'd taken the Science of Mind, the Book of Secrets suggests it's the science of transforming the mind. And that just captured me, and I've been sort of investigating that since. I'm a member of Eckhart Tolle Television, have been since 2011, so I have probably close to 500 of his videos that I've downloaded, and I certainly believe in his philosophy. How I got onto this business, I was in the workforce. As I said, I used to be in the military. I was in the workforce in a sales position for a number of years, and that job ended in February of 2014. And I was on whatever they call employment insurance, and I became aware of a program through employment insurance through the Sask Employment Agency, where if you had a business idea, you could push it to them and they may back you. So I did that, and I said I want to, I've been doing this sort of thing. Whatever I'm doing, workshops and leading up to life coaching, I've been doing that. That's my passion. I've been doing it for free forever, facilitating book studies. So
Right.
if I could
I've
get
been
some training,
book studies too.
Yeah. So if I could get some training in how to open up my own business, and I believe in you manifest. I don't believe in luck or coincidence. It just happened, but I threw it out there, and I got selected by the Praxis School of Entrepreneurship. So I'm in a 9-month training program that taught me how to open up my own business. And anyways, that's where we're at. Seitz Insights is now up and running. The website.
Seitz Insights.
Yeah, it's SEITZINSIGHTS .ca, and it's
That's how now people can get a hold of you through that.
yes,
as well.
Yes, and they can also. The workshops, they can pay via PayPal, or they can, pay. I guess we were hoping that people would prepay for this one on March 18th, but it's not really. It doesn't say that specifically there, so I believe there'll be people showing up and paying there at that one. But yes, people can email me there or phone me.
Okay, along that lines then, so you've gotten into doing something more of a full time with your love and passion, which seems to be along the lines of somewhat spiritual too, I would say, because you mentioned Conversations with God by Walsh, and you mentioned Osho, and you mentioned Tolle. Those are the three that come up in your conversation here. So you're now moving forward. And with this, and you do you have an event coming up? You said, is that a debut event? Is that the first?
That would be my first one. It's next Wednesday, March 18th, from 7 till 9 p.m. at the Cosmos Civic Center on Laurier Drive here in Saskatoon. It's in the theater, and it's $30 per person. It's a 2-hour. Well, I'll probably babble for, I don't know how long I'll talk for, but we have them actually for 3 hours, but it starts from 7 till 9, so there'll be opportunity for the feedback and that sort of thing. Now, the workshop was not there for those who do attend, I'm not there to try and convince anybody of anything. My whole focus from what I have seen is that we have our brain, which we're born with, which is our connection to something. I mean, we have trillions of cells in our bodies, so something's monitoring the scenes behind the head play here. The software is what was fed to us by our culture. I was born in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, so that's the software I'm running off of. And as I mentioned on that video before, if I'd been born a half a mile across the river, I would have been in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and I would have had a fair bit different software, because I would have had to decide whether to go to the Vietnam War or not when I was 18. And there's so much confusion out there in the world, but it's really, everybody comes from a little baby, and that little baby is, even as a baby, something is taking the pablum and digesting it and eliminating the bad, something is growing in it, and so the baby doesn't even have any software yet, but the software then is fed to it by its parents and its culture, and that's who we think we are. And that's really the only part of us that can get upset.
So now you're going to talk about on this event, it's called The Stress Can Be a Killer, right?
Yes, well.
Can you give us a quick, several sentence outline of how you figure stress is killing people?
Well, first off, Bruce Lipton in his book, The Honeymoon Effect, estimates that about 90% of all hospital visits are caused by stress. I just read an article, I think it was from the WISE Institute, W-I-Z-E, that says that 85% of all hospital visits are caused by stress. But stress is a head thing. Stress is up here. I mean, if you live long enough, you're going to have, it's not that you avoid stress, but it's not that things that we perceive as good, bad don't happen to us. But when we hang on to them, we say they shouldn't have happened to us. Or why me? Or we keep reliving something that happened 5 years ago. Every time we do that, the stuff I've read from the Heart Math Institute says every time you have a negative emotion, or every time you have an emotion, it releases 1,400 chemicals, a stressful emotion, 1,400 chemicals into your bloodstream. Now, emotion comes from, the only thing that can be emotionally hurt on me is my image, my name, George Lang Seitz, who I think I am, who society has told me I am. But I'm something far much deeper than that, and so are you, so is everybody.
So this is about...
My whole philosophy is, go up there and say, hey, this is just my point of view, you don't have to accept my beliefs. I'm not there to try and convince anybody of anything, but what I would suggest is that they look at their own beliefs and see if they're valid, if they're even theirs, or they're still running off their parents' software. Remembering that their parents were programmed too.
Right. So you're going to have this workshop several times, though. You're having it on the 18th?
And again on April 29th, which will be...
Same location, same approximate time, same amount of money, kind of thing, yeah?
Yeah, and it'll be a little updated because
And you're going to also show a movie at some point?
I'm showing a movie on April the 8th. It's a metaphysical movie called Leap. I believe you've seen it, have you?
Yes, I think so, yes.
Yeah. Well, you probably saw the original, and this is an updated version. Leap, that from the VEA network, they're on the website, so people could actually order Leap from that website, or A Course in Miracles, which are different movies. But I will have the movies there, hopefully at this showing, and if people like the movie, they'll be able to get them there actually for less, and they can get it.
Right. And can you give us a little bit, just a one-sentence synopsis on what Leap is about? This one?
Well, Leap starts and ends with the same thing I just said. Take a look at your beliefs and really look at them and are they really yours? Are they valid? Are they still serving you? Are you running off your parents' programming, or what society out there is telling you? I mean, sleep is a metaphysical. They break it. They have 20 different contributors to it. 20 different contributors, and I'll have a list of all the contributors. So, and what I found with all those contributors, I've gone to their website, so they all have some wonderful information. And there's one. Actually, the movie ends. They'll give it with a song, and it comes from one of the contributors. I think his name is Chuck Hilger, and by appearances, he looked to be around my age. And he says the life can be summed up in 17 words. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. So Leap actually shows life from a metaphysical perspective. In his book, A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle says the human body is about 99.95% vacuum, and that's absolutely, you can put your hand or anybody's hand under one of these big microscopes and you could verify that for yourself.
So now you're also doing coaching. At least that's your plan, correct? As you move into the more of the career side of what you're doing. And now my understanding is that that's correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now my understanding is that coaching today, life coaching has become a fairly mainstream thing. There's all kinds of coaches. There's fitness coaches, there's relationship coaches, spiritual coaches, sexual coaches. There's all kinds of different coaches.
Yeah.
What do you feel your niche will be? Are you going to be more general?
No. Like I would say right now to anybody watching this, don't come to me looking for financial advice on how to manage your money, because
well, that's a good point to make.
I haven't exhibited any expertise on that.
Right.
Don't come to me if you want good housekeeping tips, because it's not my forte. My main thing is, I would call myself a relationship coach, but the relationship, I just watched a really interesting video last week, and it's from the Eckhart Tolle website, but the question was posed by some lady writing in looking for her soulmate. The answer was, well, your soulmate is yourself. We are a human and a being, so what part is the being? It seems to me we get so caught up in the mind stuff, and we forget about what's running the show. So I encourage people to fall in love with themselves. I'm no guru, there's no magic potion, but if people, and I can't do that for people, but I could give them some tips maybe on how to get out of the mind. And once you can get out of the mind to meditation, through nature, whatever, you can still the mind and you can get into that deeper place. And when I've been able to do that, it's pure bliss. It really is. And you look at life from a broader perspective.
That's the benefit. That's the prize.
Well, the huge benefit is health-wise is emotions. Every time you get angry, every time you worry, you're pumping out adrenaline and cortisone. There's 1,400 chemicals, but that just floods your bloodstream. Right. And it floods you at the cellular level, right? And you can feel it. Anybody when they get angry, just watch your emotions and see what it does to you. If you get angry at somebody else, see what it feels like to you. It's hurting you more than anybody else. Unless the other person is,
Yeah.
Trying to.
I noticed that the other day, actually, just as a little anecdote. I was at an event, and there was a guy there who I would previously describe as a blowhard, and he just knows everything, kind of thing. And he always has to be completely right. So I noticed there was kind of a tension in the room, and I felt it, and I carried it with me for a while. It was really quite odd. It was just, I was aware of it, but it was a little bit hard to shake.
Yeah.
It was really quite a...
Well, energy, you can, if you look at the dog or a cat, they don't have all the software going on in their head, so they live off their instincts, and they can sense energy far more than we can, because we're always got the, interesting.
So you're going to help people get back in touch with their real selves.
Well, I'm going to give them directions. It's up to them.
Yeah,
it's up to them. They have to do the work. I've been doing this work.
You're like the book, basically, but they gotta actually use the book. They gotta pick it out.
Yes, I could give them some pointers that have worked for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's up to them to do it. But
right.
Once you've, I found, one thing that really helped me. I just want to say this. A number of years ago, after I left the military, I was working some temporary job, and I had to show up at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. And farmers brought in these soil samples, and you ground them down into a powder so that they could be analyzed. So I was in, and there was a coworker beside me. I don't even know if I knew the guy's name. And there was no bosses there. There was no supervisors. It was a temporary job. No possible way of getting any brownie points or promoted or anything. Getting a pay raise.
Right.
And I found myself unconsciously racing this guy. Like, who could get the more. There was no word spoken, but I don't know if he was racing me, but I felt bad that I had to beat him and I had to beat him, but I noticed what it was doing to my body. I said, this is absolutely idiotic.
So is your base competitive nature coming out?
Well, and I chose, at that time in my life, I had probably 150 affirmations, because I tried to change the programming from negative to positive, and now I'm trying to live more consciously than unconsciously, because even positive affirmations is still programming.
Yeah.
But I came home and I says, I choose not to compare myself with anybody, and that's been such a refreshing, good thing for me.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life when I would envy good friends because they had more material possessions, or they were going on holidays, and now I feel nothing but joy for them. It's a complete turnaround for me.
I remember it was a guy that I know was a family member, quite close family member. Years ago, he at a certain point realized that it didn't matter what other people thought. Because he got a bit of a gut going, right? He liked a bit of his beer, and he liked his food and everything. And he just quite candidly told us all at a family reunion, the freedom in his life finally came when he realized he had nothing to prove to anybody.
That's so true.
And
so true.
People there when we were talking, they were so profoundly struck by his comment, because it went right to the core of everybody who was there.
Yeah.
Because so much of our lives, isn't that correct? We're going around with this vain notion of presenting ourselves in such a way, and therefore to that extent that we do that, we don't truly live.
Yeah. Like Cartoli, again, when I would call him my teacher, or my favorite teacher. Great video. We have this software that we're running on, and if we don't, we're just like a ripple on the ocean. And we look around, and all we see is other ripples, and they're always mostly threatening to us. We're always threatened. We're living in fear of this, fear of that. But the ripples still composed of water. It wouldn't be a ripple if it wasn't composed of water.
Yeah.
So people who want take the time to investigate that for themselves. And when I can get out of being Lang the ripple and get down to the depth of the bottom of the ocean, and all experiences, and they're just experiences, good and bad, is just judgment.
Right.
And what's good and bad in Canada is not necessarily good and bad in Africa. That's just cultural.
Yeah, because
stuff.
After all, what is Canada?
Yeah. Exactly.
Another name, right?
Yeah.
It's another name. So it's all another fabrication.
Yeah.
So the things that we make up in our heads. Actually, that was a good point that you had made the last time we had coffee, which was getting out of the head. Because so much of what we fabricate is just head fabrications. Even if we go on and we create something that's a written document or whatever it is, it's still fundamentally a head creation. But then we think that is legitimate. So often we don't actually analyze it for its legitimacy, like the comment Canada. And yeah, so it once again, it's a name.
Yeah.
And often, like you said, we'll say that I am Lang or something like that. Well, really? Lang is just a little vibration that somebody made up.
Yeah.
It's a word, right?
Oh, and then
Yeah.
and then you can sometimes get, and then you could add all these letters behind your names, and you know,
Yeah.
that's okay out there in Rippleville, but that's not really who you are or
Yeah.
what you are.
It's funny when you start talking about these sorts of things, how, and you become aware of it, but with awareness, right?
Yeah.
That all of a sudden things jump out as blaringly obvious.
Yeah.
The place we're renting right now, there's a notice to the tenants, right, about some rules and regulations in there, and there's on the top of it says the guy's name, a message from the owner or whatever, and then in brackets a couple of things because he's a lawyer, and then it says landlord. So it tells you, you know, what he's talking about. It's sort of like the designations behind the name, which is interesting because I wouldn't have noticed that before.
Well, yeah, but we're so programmed to believe that we are what we own, or how much money we have, or our degrees, or our education, and that's the effects of our experience, but that's not who we are. The movie I Am, which I know you've seen because we were talking about it just a little while ago before they started interviewing, Tom Shadyac, who made Jim Carrey famous in a number of movies, and he's the producer, the director, I guess, of this movie and the star of this movie. But it's wonderful, and really what it implies is that it leads you to the conclusion, or at least I conclude, that by nature we are a cooperative species. But when you get into the educational system, we're taught nothing but to compete.
Right.
Survival of the fittest, and on and on. So that creates sort of I don't know if oxymoron is the right phrase for that, but a duality in our head, because a parent could teach you to turn the other cheek, or cooperate with everybody, and that's basically what how most parents teach their children. But then the educational system does you nothing but to compete, and winning is everything. And it's really the experiencing of the game that's the joy. The win or lose is a byproduct.
Yeah. I just thought of something actually, that the whole programming doesn't really change our nature. It's just this, like if you imagine a computer, we can get that computer to do whatever program you put on it, right? And we've been put on these programs as to what whoever is teaching us wants us to be. Where my daughter works, they have all these different colors of hats, and depending on the color of the hat, it's that's the person who's doing that job. Like the supervisor will wear a certain color hat,
Okay,
and the trainees will wear a different kind of hat. And actually, I looked up at one point the meaning of the etymology of the word hat, and it comes from person. It means person actually wearing a hat, and hat is related to the word head. So the whole idea is the whole person, the whole personality comes out of the head.
Yeah, well, as we've discussed before, as you've heard me say, or you told me, or I mentioned it to you, whatever, I don't know where personality comes from the word persona. Don't recall if that's Greek or Latin, but the whole word means to literally put on a mask. And most of us are wearing different masks. Most of us act differently around our parents versus our spouses versus our children versus our fishing buddies versus whatever. We're all putting on a different mask. So my coaching would be to show people who are interested in my services is to try to find their authentic self. And like you say, maybe it's because of my age now, but I don't give two hoots what anybody else thinks, because I don't run away to hurt anybody. But I don't care what other people think, because how would I know?
Yeah.
You have no way of controlling what other people think. They can think what they want, but if you worry about it, essentially we are energy experiencing life temporarily as a human.
And we take on all kinds of roles, right?
We take on all kinds of roles, but what affects the stress is the emotions. If people just watch their emotions, Ask and It's Given is a wonderful book by Esther Hicks and Joey Hicks, I think, her husband. He just passed away, but use your emotions as a barometer. If you're stressed, if you're upset about something, it's never the other person, it's never what happened. It happened, but it's your reaction to what happened. Saying it shouldn't, or it should, or why me, or why, if you live long enough, you're going to have your share of
and somehow trying to figure out what those triggers are.
Yes, but the triggers usually come from one of two reasons. You know, it's your ego that gets triggered. Right? Your inauthentic, your assumed self, who society has told you are, who you believe you are. Or, quite often, you're not living in the present moment. You're worrying. I mean, Eckhart Tolle has a great video, Finding Your Life's Purpose. And your life's purpose, according to him, and I 100% agree with him, is living in the present moment. Because, I mean, so many people are caught up in fear of something that may or may not happen 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or next Saturday. But I don't have a guarantee I'll be here tomorrow, or in an hour. And I don't think anybody, well, I think I know nobody has. So why not just, as it says on my website, cherish the moment, and whatever happens, I mean, to go with the flow. I mean, it is, and if you look at life in that depth, then it's not, Chuck Hillig was the guy I mentioned before, and Lee Pizzi, he does that row your boat, but also he says it's not that you're free of so-called negative experiences or bad experiences, but you're free from them.
Right.
So you deal with them, but you're not carrying them around for weeks on end and reliving them, because every time you relive something from the past, good or bad, and anybody can prove it by closing their eyes. Think of a happy event, think of a sad event, think of a great sexual encounter. You'll have a reaction. It's just reliving something.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. but you're reliving and you're pumping out the same chemicals into your bloodstream, but it's got nothing to do with the present moment. It's a memory.
Right.
And the same with the future. When and if the future comes, it will come in the present moment, in the now.
Yeah.
I do have to let my dog out here.
Yes. Well, it was great having a little interview with you, a little chat here, a little coffee chat,
Yeah.
Lang, and I look forward to your event. I want to go to it here coming on Wednesday.
Right on. Thanks,
And
Steve.
I encourage anybody else to. This is a great conversation to keep going. The power that we have within us, the inherent power we have within us. So we'll just turn this off for now, and we'll
Thanks,
maybe
Steve.
do this again sometime.